I am a health and life coach, and I'm here to really give my audience and everybody that is listening to this podcast a different perspective on different subjects around health. And I am very excited about our conversation today because Jasmine has got an incredible story to share. And I really believe that her story can help so many people because through lived experience, nobody can really argue and really doubt what the person has gone through. And I think we can learn so much from each other, from lived experience and what the person has done about a particular problem, so we can potentially apply that into our lives and we can better our lives. So Jasmine, hello, how are you? Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Hello.
So let's just jump straight in. So we are going to be talking today about mental health and in particular self-harm and how to stop that. Can you tell us a little bit about, when you start noticing that your mental health was shaky and you were struggling a bit?
Yeah, it was about grade 5 or 6, and that was when I did start self-harming I think, in midway year 6, and I continued to do that throughout grade 7 to 9 as well.
Wow, okay. And if you think about what led you to actually start, doing the actual self-harm, like what what were your thoughts? I mean, what kind of led you to that place? What were you actually feeling before you actually did it?
I think a few years ago when that all started, I had pretty low life satisfaction and multiple events from the people around me and just my overall not understanding who I was in this world since I was very young and
Hmm.
um, not really being satisfied with my life or what I expected my life to be in the future. Um, I guess I just felt that I didn't know what else to do, and this was kind of my way of coping with it.
Okay. So when you talk about life dissatisfaction, was there anything in particular? Do you think that was driven by just observing people outside of you, or was that something that came from inside you, thinking like, "Oh, I wish my life was different," or was it social media? How did you become like? How did you really feel that you were not satisfied with your life?
I guess because I was still in school at that point, I had the feeling and from seeing the way that other people live their lives that there was only one way to do it. For example, going to further education like university and getting a job and just working and working, like the people around me did and like my parents did. And I guess that just led to not being satisfied with the way that I perceived life to be.
Hmm. That's really interesting because you were very young and you're kind of like projecting a future, thinking like, I'm not sure if I want to go down that path. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that kind of led you to think like, if I don't do that, what else will I do? And then, and that's why you became kind of really unhappy. Is that right?
Yeah.
So was observing the adults, not so much people at your age, not so much observing what people at your age were doing, but observing what kind of your future could be like if you followed the same step as every adult around you. Is that what you're talking about when yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so, but it was also, I guess, dissatisfaction with the person that I was and the people that I was around because I did love my friends but because I was, I guess, still discovering myself as a person, I wasn't really sure who I was.
Yeah. So let's say if a mom or a daughter or a son or somebody at your age right now, no 14, 13, or even younger, much younger than you, are listening to this right now, do you think, are the signs that they can recognize that they don't potentially relate to, their friends or their circumstances around them? What were the signs that you were feeling, inside you, that it led you to feel really unhappy about your life?
Um, I think some of the signs that I noticed, because at that point, because I wasn't really sure about what I was doing and why I was doing it. Um, but I think I definitely started to isolate myself from my family and friends, so that's definitely a major sign as well. And for me personally, I was someone that, whilst I was struggling, I was still smiling and I was still laughing. So that makes it really hard to look out when you're observing other people who might be going through something, or even when you're thinking about whether you yourself are struggling with something. So just those moments that might seem not relevant when you're feeling down, things that are really meant for you to look out for.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were kind of distancing yourself, did anybody notice at all that you were doing that, or it was only your observation, thinking like, I need to distance myself from my family and friends? Or did anybody kind of come to you and say, Jasmine, I feel like you are not the same anymore, or what's going on?
Yeah, there were a few of my friends that did know that I was self harming myself. They tried to bring it up. I remember in grade six, they tried to bring it up to a teacher, but um, the teacher never actually found out. Although I think a few teachers did know later on, because I was put into the school counselor. Uh,
Hmm.
but I don't think that many of my friends were aware of what was really going on and why I did what I did. But that was also because I wasn't telling them.
Yeah, yeah. And the idea to actually do the self harming, if your friends were not doing, where did the idea to doing that came from? Like, was something that, again, that you saw on social media, or how did you even think about doing that?
Um, I'm not exactly sure, but I do think that it would have come from social media and seeing other people using it as a way of coping, which made
Hmm.
right.
Yeah. Do you think social media has had an impact on your mental health?
Um, I would say not as much as other people, but I do think that there are moments where you look on social media, and moments that I've looked on social media, that you really see people supposedly living their best life with a perfect body and perfect mental health, and it just really seems, it just makes yourself think, why don't I have that?
Hmm. Yeah. It makes you feel like it's unattainable as well. Like, for your future, is that kind of what you felt like? How am I ever gonna get there? Was there like some sort of pressure as well?
Yeah, there was a bit of pressure, especially because I was a good student. Even whilst I was struggling, I still kept up my grades, and I suppose there was pressure for me to, get a high paying salary in a job with a good reputation and just work and earn lots of money for my family.
Did that pressure come from you, or did that pressure come from your parents, do you think? Or
Um,
from your of teachers, or from anybody around you?
I think it did come from me, because my parents are not that strict with it. Obviously, they want me to do well, but I think it was
Hmm.
pressure that came from me and seeing other people living their lives that I wanted to succeed, and I thought that that was the way to succeed.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have been a wise soul for a long time. So to, start inquiring those questions around your future at such a young age, like, do you feel like it just added a load of pressure on you, without you even realizing, that led you to a spiral of struggling with your mental health?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose at that point, I noticed that I was good at giving advice to people, and along with struggling with my own mental health, I wanted to help others cope with their own, even if I didn't know how to help myself. So that led me to wanting to go down the path of maybe being a psychologist. So I
Hmm.
did feel a bit of pressure, even though at that point I was a bit better, um, that I wanted to help people down that path, and there was pressure for me to go through the education to learn that and to help people when I was so desperately struggling with myself.
Right. Okay. So on top of that, you had the pressure, like almost like I need to save the world, like I need to save people that are in pain and in suffering, and I want to help them. It's kind of that sort of pressure that you were feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Even now, sometimes that pressure still gets to me, and later on
Hmm.
in those years, like not just from grade 6, but also up to grade 9, I sometimes have felt that I wanted to help everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is a big weight to carry on your shoulders for sure, and it's a lot of pressure. And how did you start kind of coming out of it, the self-harming, cutting yourself, to how did you ask help? How was it somebody that reached out to you to saying you need help? How did you start your journey to getting better?
Um, I guess there were definitely friends in my life who love and support me, and of course, they wanted me to stop. So, um, when I started, up until about the start of grade 9, it was starting to decrease, like the amount of times that I was harming myself, and
Hmm.
slowly kind of faded out. Although I was still struggling with my mental health, I knew that I didn't want to put my friends and my family through that anymore. So I tried to
Hmm.
stop. And upon, I guess, learning more about myself and the world and kind of reinventing my perception of reality and the way that I wanted to live my life kind of helped me stop that and pave a new way of living.
Awesome. And how did you go about that? You mentioned that you saw the counselor at school. Was that kind of the first step, would you say, that to start rebuilding your perception of the world, or did you go to a psychologist, or how did you go about that?
Um, I would say the counselor wasn't that significant because um, it was helpful in some ways, but I didn't have many sessions and we didn't really
Mhm.
that deep into it. I did
Mhm.
a psychologist at the beginning of grade 9 as well when I was
Mhm.
um, still struggling with my mental health, and I think that was
Mhm.
the last time that I did harm myself after seeing the psychologist.
Yeah, and that's something that I believe you asked your mom, right? I want to see a psychologist. So it was a kind of you reaching out for help, right? Which again takes an enormous amount of courage, right? Did you feel that, or how did you, muster the courage to ask your mom, like, I actually need help?
Mm. I think back then it was very on and off because there were moments where I was at the point of saying, I really, really need help. And there were moments
Mhm.
I was just, oh, I'm fine. I don't need help. I can just handle it myself. Um,
Mhm.
but I suppose you get to a point where you really realize that there is something wrong and I really need,
Yeah.
and I'm I might go I might go on tomorrow feeling fine and feel like I don't need help. But at the base of it, if it's just gonna come back to this, I need to get help.
Mhm. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, so after you saw the psychologist, what was the next step that you took to reinvent yourself and your perception of the world?
I think the main thing that happened was that I went to a bookstore with my friend and I actually purchased the book Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
And that was really the moment when I realized that there was much more to what I wanted to learn, and there was much more to life and healing and just a bunch of different things other than psychology about the brain and the body and how it works. And it really fascinated me. And that was really the biggest step where I realized um, I'm not completely sure what I want to do with my life and where I'm going, but I know that this is the direction that I want to head in.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've read the book. It's a very complex book to read, I must admit, because I've read his other books before that. how did you even, you know, understood the concepts, which are quite, just as if it's kind of that first time that you get exposed to all of the concepts that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, which is basically, in essence, what you said, create a new reality, for yourself, through your own thoughts and, daily, by visualization, meditation, or whatever, you're using. But was it hard for you to understand the actual concepts that he was explaining? Like,
Yeah, it was actually. I do agree. It's a very complex book. I might have been better off reading one of his other books. Like I'm reading.
break the habit, just, yeah,
Yeah,
the first one.
yeah. But I think the way that he explains it is still really helpful, and there's
Yeah.
lots of experiments that he explains and diagrams.
Hmm.
But I do like to keep the books, like the hard copy books that I buy. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in giving it a reread later on. But I just think the main concepts were really there, and it was really fascinating to me, and it just really got me a whole lot more into science.
Yeah, amazing. And you talked about like your grades were always, you're performing well at school and you had some good days, bad days. Would you say throughout this whole journey, you were never, depressed enough to just stay in bed all day and not wanting to go to school, or, did that ever happen? Or was it you were still functioning with your kind of day-to-day activities as per normal?
Absolutely, I was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's also something that a lot of people um, just kind of overlook, because there are people who struggle with a lot of different things, anxiety, depression, and they're still able to function and go along about their day. But that doesn't mean that they're not struggling,
Yeah.
because for me, I was I had times where I was laughing and smiling and talking and
Mhm.
fine, and there were times where I felt really, really low. And just because I was smiling and laughing at those times doesn't
Mhm.
I wasn't still struggling the other half of the time.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a massive. How do you think of course, your coping mechanism became like the self-harming, and there could be that people find different coping mechanisms, like, you mentioned like the anxiety, it could be food related, could be drugs, it could be alcohol, even at a young age today. How what would you say to somebody that is trying to mask, their feelings, of ups and downs every day, with some sort of coping mechanism? What would you say to that person? Like, this is the point that you need to reach out for help. What it is the one thing that you would highlight to the person that's listening to this?
I would say, um, I know it's scary, but the pleasure from your coping mechanism is temporary, and you have to take the next step and get some real help, because the feelings that you will feel and the experiences that you will have once you've come out of it is even better than you could imagine.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's very powerful. Yeah. And what does your life look like now? Is like, do you have like habits that you practice that are important to keep on top of your mental health and to, keep the new perception of yourself and the world alive? What are the habits that you practice now that you feel that it's being important for this transition for you?
I think um one of the most solid things about me now is that my mindset is a lot more positive, and
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I'm still on the journey of kind of becoming better and evolving, but the main things that I try to do always is never assume negative, always positive, and
Mm-hmm.
try to keep positive thoughts in my mind all the time, and just never just look at something, and think negative of it. Just try to make something good out of it, and
Mm-hmm.
always have positive thoughts about others as well and respect them as people, even if maybe they do bad things or you don't like them.
Hmm.
Feel that now I just have a lot of love for myself and the people around me, and I think that's really important for everyday living.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's very beautiful. How do you go about having love to yourself now? What it is the again the one thing that you can say to people that they can start walking back to themselves again, to actually build this relationship of love.
I would say, like, you may not realize it now, but you are beautiful and you are
Hmm.
an amazing soul. And maybe you don't realize it now. And I wasn't able to realize it either. I was able to look in the mirror and see all of my flaws and not like the person that I was and think I was a bad person. But it's always possible to love yourself, and you just have to give that chance because nowadays I can look in the mirror and tell myself that I'm beautiful and not find any single flaw and remind
That's
myself
beautiful.
I'm a good person. I'm just trying my best, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, in this transition, I know that you started a blog and you started writing articles. So, tell us a little bit more about your work now.
Yeah, I felt that I wanted to kind of help people whilst also kind of building my reputation for the career that I'm building as I get older. So I started writing self help articles on my website, which I publish every 2 weeks.
Hmm.
It kind of gives me a chance to allow people to see my perception of the world,
Hmm.
maybe inspire a bit of hope in them and a new perspective in their lives as well, whilst also, giving me the chance to focus on school and
Yeah,
keep going with my life as well.
that's amazing. What would you say are the kind of one or two biggest challenges for people at your age these days when it comes to mental health?
Um, that they don't realize it, I guess, because I think nowadays mental health is something that a lot more people want to open up about, and it's becoming, the stigma is being reduced a lot nowadays, and people are starting
Hmm.
to get more help. But I think for young people, and not just young people, a lot of people around the world, they don't realize that they're struggling with their mental health because it's not, like I said before, I was still smiling and I was still happy.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feel like you physically can't get out of bed and you're struggling
Hmm.
um, to need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your relationship with social media now? Do you think that you have changed your relationship with social media now, since what happened to you? How do you relate to it now?
I would say that I definitely understand more that social media and the things you see on there aren't always real, and people try to make their life look like it's perfect, but really they're just normal people like us who are living their lives. And
Hmm.
it's good to just maybe look at a good picture of someone and think to yourself, "Wow, they're living a great life." But so
Hmm.
am I, and I'm striving to be better, and they're striving to be better, and they're just
Hmm.
another person, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's so. Would you say that you have, if you talk about like the practicality of it, do you spend less time on social media, or it hasn't changed, or you just kind of you have been able to put a filter, between you and social media? How does that work now practically?
Um, I would say that I still use social media a lot, because
Yeah,
yeah, I'm a kid
it
and
is.
I like to scroll on TikTok and watch Netflix, but I think the main thing is that um my view of it has changed and I've gotten a lot
Uh-huh.
at um looking at social media and thinking that everything is real and everyone's perfect and I'm not,
Hmm.
but that's not true.
Yeah, amazing. So I will add the link to your blog Is that something that you want to ask from the listeners? Do you want them to, is that just subscribe to your blog, or what would you like them to do so they can follow you?
Absolutely. I would say definitely check out my website and the articles that I publish. It would help me out a lot. And I primarily use Instagram, but
Yeah.
I have other social media platforms as well that you can follow. But I'd say mostly follow me on Instagram and Facebook as well, because I publish content on there quite often.
Awesome. And one last question. Like, if a parent, because I'm a parent myself, so I'm just thinking from a parent's perspective, they believe that a child is self-harming. What do you think is the best way to go about it? Like, that would be helpful from your perspective, that you think that it would help, the child open up, or to receiving help. What would you say that would be a good thing for a parent to do?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely a bit of a struggle because normally, if a child is struggling, they they desperately want help, I would think, but it comes out as just pushing away the parent and not wanting to get help or not wanting to admit that they need help. So I would say, as a parent, you definitely just have to be patient with your kid and do the best to support them, because and set them up with the resources that they need, and let them know that they're loved and cared for, and
Hmm.
they're ready to get help. It's right there for them. But
Beautiful.
really, it's up to the kid to step out of their kind of shell and walk towards
Yes.
help. So just sometimes, like, I wanted to help everyone, but not everyone is ready to be helped or want to be helped. So you kind of have to let them take that path for themselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's very powerful. Just taking responsibility for their own kind of healing. Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine. It's just been so powerful. I think your story is going to help so many people. I'm going to add your website details in the comments so people can get in touch, and your Instagram as well, and all your socials, so people can get in touch with you and can follow you. Keep doing the work that you're doing. It's very, very powerful. It's very needed. So yeah, just keep helping the world. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity again. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.